This is a movie that I've been excited to talk about. It took me a while to find it, to watch it. I've been looking for it for some time, and recently found it. And now it's time to discuss it. And that movie is Revenge. Let's talk about it. It's funny how sometimes a one-word title is all you need to distill the essence of a story. If you didn't know anything about this movie, you could easily guess that someone is getting revenge in this movie. And that's what we have here. It's that simple, and it's also not. This movie is directed by Coralie Farjat, the director of The Substance. And if you've seen that movie and you haven't seen this, you're in for a treat. This was my experience. I've been trying to find Revenge. I've been open to seeing it since it first dropped, but for whatever reason, was never able to get around to watching it. And then recently, I searched for it and couldn't really find it where it was easily accessible. And so I let it go, and then I saw The Substance, and then I really enjoyed that. And then I came back to find Revenge, still couldn't find it, and I waited maybe a week or so, I don't know, a month or two, a couple months. Actually, it was a few months. And then I recently found it on some random app, I think Xumo, Xumo. They had it there for free, and I watched it, and I was like, okay, this is all right. And I'm glad I did, because I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I think if you like The Substance, you would be able to appreciate this movie. One of the first things that came to me that was quite interesting, I think, when I looked at both of Coralie Farjat's films together, between The Substance and Revenge, is that both the lead characters are women who speak to or act on this need to be seen. Elizabeth Sparkle is a character who was seen for many years and adored, and as she aged, she started to feel less seen. She felt more invisible, replaceable, which is what drives her to take the substance in the first place. Whereas Jen, she has a scene the night before her assault where she's talking to one of the men when they're friendly and they're having a nice time, and she's asked about. It's a conversation about what her dreams are, what she aspires to do and become. And one of the things she says is that she wants to be seen. Like she wants to go to LA and be seen, maybe be an actor, be a model. There's something about the want to be seen and the power in that, feeling like someone has recognized you. So I thought that was cool that between the two films that both women are negotiating some form of that, needing to be seen, wanting that attention. And coincidentally, both women take something that transforms them. Jen, in this movie, she ends up ingesting a drug that ends up altering her. She goes on a sort of this spiritual trip, which leads to her rebirth. This is following the assault. And again, something else that's interesting between the two movies. The other thing is that Farjat is a director that is really big on, if you've seen any of her interviews, you know she's talked about symbolism. And in both movies, there's plenty of that. This movie I found was interesting. There are several. One I wanted to focus on for this example I'm giving has to do with the image of the star. So Jen wears two star earrings that we see here. And when you think about The Substance and how that movie starts and ends, the first frame of the movie is Elizabeth Sparkle's star on the Walk of Fame. And it's also, it appears again at the end of the movie. So interesting about star, the star image and the symbol of a star and what that means. But in Jen's case, there's something interesting. There's a sparkle within her, and she's wanting that to be out. What's unfortunate is that the men around her don't really see her. They see an object. They see something like they see a plaything. They don't see a human, and this is what leads to her assault, and this changes her. The other symbol is that there's an apple here, which reminded me of, immediately I thought of Eve from the Bible. Something about this story is biblical in a way. It calls forth movie is the story of what it is to be a woman and what it is to be a conventionally attractive woman that gets a lot of attention and is negotiating the weight of that and reveling in the power of that too. Jen is a character who, when we meet her, she starts in one place and ends in another. At the beginning, she's light. She's wearing a lot of pink and like bright colors. She's attractive, and she knows she's attractive, and she moves through space with that knowledge and the power of reveling in her looks. And she's got this married man all over her, and there's a part of she enjoys that. Where that switch shifts, though, is when there is attention that's unwanted. Just because she's dressing a certain way or she's moving a certain way that feels very light and free and like flirty, does not necessarily invite advances, especially when she does not want that. This is Jen's predicament, and it's so interesting. When I think back to the apple, there's something about it that suggests that, because apple is like this to me. When I think of the apple as the representation of temptation, and that Eve is the one who, if you look at it it's Eve's fault. Like, this is like she brought it on herself. The way Jen moves, the way she was dressed, she invited the insult. She should have dressed differently. She should have not. This is the narrative. This is what you hear when a woman receives advances that she doesn't want, when she's wearing certain things that make her feel comfortable. She's not necessarily asking for catcalls, and this is not what Jen is asking, and yet this is what she receives, and worse. Something else visually that's pretty striking. This movie is quite bloody. Literally, there's just blood. There's a lot of blood in this movie. And that's a style thing, similar to what you might see in a Quentin Tarantino movie. But I think this movie, it's clear that the blood means more than just Tarantino's. The blood in Tarantino's movies feel like edge for the sake of edge, almost like there's just a punk rock move about it. And I think in this movie, it's not so much that. I think there is an edge, but this is really about the blood saying something. To me, the blood was a symbol for like menstruation and like passion and anger. Menstruation, obviously, I don't menstruate, so I don't know what it feels like, but I've been around a lot of women who discussed the experience and what it feels like, the pain that can come with that, and how there's an anger about it. And I think there's something about it that feels, this movie has an anger to it. It's edgy in that way. There is character in the movie, and there is just ferocity. There's like a fierceness. And I think the blood, all of that really, to go back to what the blood is, that the blood is all of that. How Jen moves, she begins operating in a way that women are not supposed to. If you zoom out, you could also say that this is a movie that Coralie Farjat is not supposed to make. Because it feels like the edge that it has, especially when it comes to the action sequences, there's really strong action in this movie. If you didn't know Farjat directed this movie, you might have assumed that a man did it. What sets it apart, though, is what the camera does, and how the camera, it feels like a woman's, like the movie feels like it's packaged in the feminine. For instance, if you take the assault, the way the camera doesn't glorify the rape, there's not all these, we don't see extensive shots of the assault. It feels like it's shot very intentionally at an angle, and it's done in a way to emphasize the attack nature of it. There's nothing loving about it. There's nothing caring about it. The way it's shot shows that. It's shot sort of off, it's not centered. You see like hands and like, you see just bits of stuff. You know what's happening. It's just as long as it needs to be, and then it moves on. But I think in a different movie, it might have been more extensive. I think another good example is if you look at the film, the recent film Blink Twice, directed by Zoe Kravitz. Assault is shown in that movie too, but how it's framed, how it's shown, it's very particular and very intentional. You see very specific shots. It's not extensive, but I think that's a difference between how you might see it in a different film. I don't think one should go into this movie taking things literally. This feels very much like a myth. The way it's told. It's archetypal. Jen is the archetypal woman who is one way, fun and light and happy. Then she's assaulted, she's attacked. She has a sort of figurative death, and then she is reborn as this new version of herself, which I love. That the sequence, by the way, there's an actual sequence of her going through her own sort of metamorphosis almost. She's going through this transition, and it's physically painful, and it does all these things, takes her all these places mentally. And when she emerges, she's a new version of herself. And it's almost like she becomes this superhero, whatever it is, almost. Not that she has superpowers or anything like that. It's just that what that sequence evokes is like this. She's able now to tap into a power that she wasn't using before. She was content to get by with her looks and her charm, and when she's reborn, now she has to dig deeper and find the power within herself to survive this ordeal. Now she's got to get away from these three men who are now trying to kill her. And she has to survive that. What I love about her transition is that she starts wearing light clothing, her hair is blonde, everything's light, and then she goes through this transition where throughout the movie she's getting dirtier, and there's a lot of bloodier, and her hair is darkening. She's literally transforming before our eyes throughout the movie as she goes through and exacts her revenge on these different dudes. And it's pretty cool to see. She really becomes fully this force. And it's cool to witness. There's a line in this movie that I thought was really cool and particularly telling about another theme in this movie, which just has to do with hunting. So the men are at the location in the first place to hunt. They do this annually. At one point, Richard is talking to the man who raped Jen, and they're going to split up. And one of the guys tells him, "Hey, look, man, we shouldn't split up. I read something, somewhere that, if you're hunting in the woods, you should stay together." And obviously this is a different setting because they're not in the woods, they're in the desert. And what I like about that line is that it suggests this other dance that's happening. The men are hunters, and they're there hunting game and stuff. But the roles reverse. In a movie called Revenge, obviously those men will become hunted. Jen has to hunt them. And the roles are reversed. And I think a lot of that is, you see that throughout the movie in a lot of ways, even from the perspective of the director, how if a man told this story, it would look one way. If the roles were reversed, it looks a different way. So I think Kill Bill is a great example. This is what I thought about. Tarantino, Kill Bill is essentially a revenge movie, but it looks different when the tables are turned And Farjat's in the director's chair. Yes, the camera objectifies Jen, but it's doing so to make a point. I think you see this in The Substance too, where the camera's doing stuff, but there's a real, like, there's a reason for it. It's not just because she's hot and we want the audience to see how hot she is. She's never naked in this movie. That's the other thing. She may get stripped down. She's stripped down but something about it feels like it's done in a way that's powerful. There's a power way that it's done. She goes from wearing little clothing to be sensual and sexy to where now she's wearing little clothing and it's about, like, she's feral. She's like the archetypal wild woman, which is something that comes from, if you know anything about the book Women Who Run with the Wolves, the wild woman is an archetype that's all through that book. It's a great book, by the way. If you haven't seen that book, I encourage you to, check it out. But Jen becomes this almost wild woman, and she needs to survive. So it's no longer about her looks and how sexy she is. So the story is deceptively simple. There's only a handful of people. There's 4 people in this movie. And I think the sparsity of it lends itself to something that is cool. It's very tight. It doesn't have a lot of fat on it. And it's just straight up, you know what's going on, and then just go. The acting, for the most part, is very solid. Matilda Lutz is great. I had never seen her in anything else. This is the first movie I've seen her in, but now I think I will look for other roles, other movies that she's been in, because I really enjoyed her performance in this movie. Kevin Jensen's is a French actor who, I hadn't seen him in anything else, but he's delightfully slimy. He's handsome, and at the end of the day, you want him to get his just desserts. And so the other thing is that Jensen's is super exposed. What I find really interesting is that I mentioned earlier how the camera objectifies Jen, but purposefully. And similarly, the camera objectifies Richard, but for a purpose. There are scenes where he's all the way naked. That means something. It's like now you get to be naked. Like, now the men are in the position where they have to have everything laid bare. This is definitely a movie where the images, what you see on screen, have a lot to say. You don't need to have it spoon-fed to you. I highly recommend Revenge. Do give it a look if you haven't seen it, because it's pretty awesome. It's a great action movie. It's a solid revenge movie with good performances, great action, wonderful effects. The practical effects on display are great. Like, it's pretty, and it's also they're so great, in fact, that you might cringe a little bit. It does not pull punches. This movie is very serious. And when you look at this movie and The Substance, it feels like a natural progression and equally impactful. Yeah, highly recommend Revenge. Give it a look. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Come on back. More reviews on the way. That's going to do it. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.